The warning that changed everything. Sarah never liked hospitals. The smell of disinfectant, the quiet, beeping machines, the way time felt frozen inside the walls. Still, she sat patiently in the long hallway, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the closed door across from her. Before continue, please like and subscribe my YouTube channel, Hazel Stories. Now, let's start the story. Room 417. That's where her husband was. Mark had been brought in earlier that evening after a sudden collapse at work. The doctors said it was nothing serious. Stress, exhaustion. He would recover quickly. That should have made Sarah feel calm, but it didn't. Something felt off. The hospital was unusually quiet for a Friday night. Nurses walked past without much noise. A clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Sarah checked her phone for the 5th time in 10 minutes. No new messages. She stood up and paced slowly, trying to release the tension in her chest. Mark had always been strong, controlled, calm. Seeing him on a hospital bed earlier had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Finally, the door opened. A doctor stepped out, adjusting his glasses. "Your husband is stable," he said. "He's resting now." Sarah let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Can I see him?" "Briefly," the doctor replied. "Then you should go home and rest." She nodded. Inside the room, Mark lay quietly, eyes closed. His face looked pale under the harsh lights, but peaceful. Sarah sat beside him and held his hand. "You scared me," she whispered. Mark didn't wake up. After a few minutes, Sarah stood and quietly left the room. The doctor's words echoed in her head. "Go home, rest." She grabbed her coat and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing softly on the floor. That's when a voice stopped her. "Mrs. Harris?" Sarah turned. A woman stood a few feet away. She wore dark blue scrubs and a badge that read Head Nurse. Evelyn Moore. Her face was serious. Too serious. "Yes?" Sarah answered. The nurse glanced around the hallway before stepping closer. Her voice dropped low. "I need to talk to you," she said. Sarah frowned. "Is something wrong with my husband?" The nurse hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the security camera at the corner of the ceiling. "Not medically," she said quietly. That made Sarah's stomach tighten. "Then what is it?" she asked. The nurse took another step closer. Her hands trembled slightly. "If you value your life, you need to stay away from your husband." The words hit Sarah like ice water. "What?" Sarah said, her voice barely louder than a breath. "What are you talking about?" The nurse swallowed hard. "I can't explain here," she said. "I shouldn't even be saying this." Sarah felt her heart begin to race. Did Mark do something? Is he dangerous? The nurse didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked straight into Sarah's eyes, her expression filled with fear and urgency. "Please, just listen to me," she said. "Don't come back alone, don't confront him, and don't tell him I spoke to you." Sarah shook her head slowly. "You're scaring me." The nurse stepped back. "I know, but I'd rather scare you than see you hurt." Before Sarah could ask another question, the nurse turned and walked quickly down the hallway, disappearing through a side door. Sarah stood frozen. Her mind tried to make sense of what just happened. That didn't make sense. Mark was her husband. They had been married for 6 years. He was quiet, organized, predictable. He never raised his voice, never lost control. He wasn't dangerous, right? Sarah walked out of the hospital into the cool night air. The parking lot lights glowed softly above her. She stood beside her car for a moment, trying to breathe normally. Maybe the nurse was mistaken. Maybe she had confused Mark with someone else. Or maybe she was overworked, tired, emotional. Sarah shook her head and got into the car. As she drove home, the nurse's words replayed in her mind. If you value your life, stay away from your husband. That night, Sarah barely slept. Every sound in the apartment felt louder than usual. The hum of the refrigerator, the wind outside the window. She checked her phone again and again. At 2:14 a.m., her phone buzzed. Mark. How are you? Did you get home safe? Sarah stared at the screen. She typed back, slowly. Sarah. Yes, the doctor said you're okay. A few seconds passed. Mark. Good. I'll be home tomorrow. I miss you. The words looked normal, loving, yet Sarah felt a chill run through her body. The next morning, Sarah returned to the hospital. She told herself she just wanted answers. She asked the front desk about Nurse Evelyn Moore. The receptionist frowned. She took the day off. Sarah waited. Hours passed. Finally, she saw the nurse walking toward the staff entrance. Sarah stood up quickly. Nurse Moore? She said softly. The nurse stopped. Her face went pale when she saw Sarah. I told you not to come back, she said quietly. I need to understand. You can't just say something like that and disappear. The nurse swallowed deeply. I shouldn't have said anything, she murmured. But once I saw your name on his file, I couldn't stay silent. What do you mean? Sarah asked. The nurse leaned closer. I've seen your husband here before, she whispered. Sarah's heart dropped. That's impossible, she said. This is his first time. The nurse shook her head slowly. No, she said, it's not. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Before she could respond, a loud voice echoed down the hallway. Sarah? She turned. Mark stood there, fully dressed, watching them, smiling. And in that moment, Sarah understood something that made her blood run cold. The nurse wasn't afraid of Mark finding out. She was afraid that Sarah already had. And this warning was only the beginning. Sarah felt her body stiffen when she saw Mark standing at the end of the hallway. He looked normal. Too normal. Clean jacket, calm face, that familiar smile she had trusted for years. Hey, Mark said, walking closer. What are you doing here so early? Sarah glanced at Nurse Evelyn. The woman had stepped back slightly, her face tight with fear. I came to check on you, Sarah replied carefully. Mark smiled. I told you I'd be fine. His eyes moved to the nurse. Is there a problem? He asked politely. Evelyn forced a smile. No, Mr. Harris, just routine follow-up. Mark nodded. Good. Sarah, let's go. I don't like hospitals. Sarah hesitated. She looked at Evelyn one last time. The nurse's eyes silently begged her not to leave. But Mark was already holding Sarah's arm, guiding her toward the exit. His grip was gentle, yet firm. Outside, Mark unlocked the car and got in like nothing had happened. You look tired, he said. Did something happen last night? Sarah stared straight ahead. A nurse said something strange. Mark's jaw tightened for a split second. What kind of strange? He asked. She said she'd seen you here before. Mark laughed lightly. That's ridiculous. Sarah turned toward him. Then why did she look scared? Mark's smile faded. You shouldn't listen to hospital staff gossip. They see hundreds of people. They mix faces up. Sarah wanted to believe him. She really did. But the nurse's fear felt real. Too real. At home, Mark moved like everything was normal. He took a shower, made coffee, turned on the news. Sarah watched him quietly. Every sound felt louder now. The spoon tapping the mug, the water running, his footsteps behind her. Mark noticed her silence. You're acting strange, he said. Sarah swallowed. I didn't sleep. Mark stepped closer. Because you were worried about me? She nodded. He smiled again and kissed her forehead. You worried too much, he said. I'm fine. But Sarah noticed something new. When he hugged her, she smelled disinfectant. Strong. Fresh. Like hospital cleaner. Later that afternoon, Mark fell asleep on the couch. Sarah sat across from him, watching his chest rise and fall. Her heart raced. She didn't want to do this, but she needed answers. Quietly, she picked up his phone from the table. It was locked. She tried his birthday. Wrong. She tried their anniversary. Wrong. Then, without thinking, she entered a date she didn't recognize. The phone unlocked. Sarah's hands shook. Her stomach dropped. Messages. Calls. Saved notes. A calendar with dates marked 4/17. Room number. Her heart pounded as she scrolled. There were hospital visits listed for years ago. Not emergencies, not accidents. Appointments. Regular. Planned. Footsteps behind her. What are you doing? Sarah jumped. Mark stood there, wide awake. She froze. Her voice cracked, you said this was your first time in that hospital. Mark stared at the phone in her hand. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. You shouldn't go through my things, he said calmly. That's all you're worried about? Sarah asked. Mark walked closer. You're overthinking, he said. Those visits were for a friend. Sarah shook her head. Why is the room number written over and over? Mark reached for the phone. Sarah pulled it back. Who is Evelyn? She asked suddenly. Mark's eyes darkened. Who? He asked. The head nurse. She knows you. Silence filled the room. Mark took a deep breath. You embarrassed me today, he said quietly. Sarah stared at him. You think this is about embarrassment? Mark stepped closer. People talk. I don't like attention. Sarah's voice trembled. Why was she scared of you? Mark smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Fear makes people dramatic, especially women. That sentence changed everything. Sarah felt it, a cold understanding settling in her chest. She took a step back. I'm going to stay with my sister tonight. Mark's smile vanished. No, he said simply. Sarah's heart jumped. What? You're not leaving, Mark said calmly. Sarah felt fear for the first time. Real fear. I need space, she said. Mark walked closer. You're tired. You don't know what you're saying. Sarah backed toward the bedroom door. I do, and I don't feel safe. Mark stopped. His face went blank. Then his phone buzzed. A message. He glanced at it. Sarah saw his hand tighten. Who's that? She asked. No one, he replied quickly. She ran. Sarah grabbed her coat and keys and rushed out the door, barefoot. Mark shouted her name. She didn't stop. Outside, she ran until her lungs burned. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't go back. At a gas station, Sarah sat on the curb, shaking. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at it, then answered. Sarah, a woman whispered. It's Evelyn. Sarah's breath caught. I knew you'd call, Evelyn said. He didn't want you to know. Know what? Sarah asked. That your husband isn't a patient. He's been coming to that hospital for years. For what? Sarah whispered. Evelyn paused. To visit women who never had visitors. Women who were afraid. Sarah's blood ran cold. And, Sarah, Evelyn continued, her voice breaking, you were next. The call ended. Sarah sat there in silence. Her phone slipped from her hand. She finally understood. The hospital wasn't where Mark got sick. It was where his secrets lived. And now that she knew, there was no going back. Sarah sat in her car outside the police station for almost an hour. Her hands were still shaking. She had tried to go inside twice. Each time her legs refused to move. Because how could she explain this? My husband might be dangerous. I heard a nurse whisper. I found strange notes on his phone. none of it sounded strong enough. Not yet. Instead, Sarah drove to her sister Linda's apartment across town. She didn't tell Mark where she was. She turned off her location. She left her phone on silent. Linda opened the door and froze when she saw Sarah's face. "Sarah, what happened?" Sarah collapsed into her arms. Inside, while Linda made tea, Sarah told her everything. The hospital, Nurse Evelyn, the phone, room 417. Linda listened quietly, her face growing pale. "This is serious," Linda said finally. "You can't go back." "I know," Sarah whispered, "but I need proof." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. At 2:14 a.m., her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Evelyn, I shouldn't do this, but you deserve the truth." Another message came through. "Evelyn, meet me tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., diner across from the hospital." Sarah stared at the screen. Fear twisted in her stomach. But she replied, "Sarah, I'll be there." The next morning, Sarah wore a hat and sunglasses. She kept her head down as she entered the small diner. Evelyn sat in the corner booth. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hands wrapped tightly around a coffee mug. "Thank you for coming," Evelyn whispered. Sarah slid into the booth. "Tell me everything." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I've worked at that hospital for 12 years. I remember faces, especially ones that come back again and again." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. "This is a visitor log. Unofficial. I kept copies." Sarah unfolded it. Her heart sank. Mark's name, over and over. Different years, same room. Evelyn continued. "He wasn't visiting family. He asked for women who didn't have anyone." Sarah's throat tightened. "Why?" Evelyn nervously. "He liked to talk to them. Women who were weak, afraid, alone." Sarah's voice shook. "Did he hurt them?" Evelyn hesitated. "Not in ways that left marks. At least, not that we could prove." Sarah felt sick.
"There was one woman," Evelyn said softly. "Her name was Claire." Sarah looked up. "What happened to her?" "She disappeared," Evelyn said. "She checked out, but no one ever came to get her. No family, no calls, nothing." Sarah's hands trembled. "And Mark?" "He was the last visitor listed," Evelyn said. Silence filled the booth. "I tried to report it," Evelyn said. "But without proof, nothing happened. Then I started seeing Mark everywhere. New patients, same routine." Sarah swallowed. "Why warn me now?" Evelyn met her eyes. "Because yesterday," she said, "he asked about transferring a patient." Sarah's breath caught. "Me?" she whispered. Evelyn nodded. "He asked questions only family should ask. Medical history, blood type, allergies." Sarah felt cold all over. "He planned to bring you in," Evelyn said. "Slowly, quietly." Sarah stood abruptly. "I need to go," she said. Evelyn grabbed her wrist. "Be careful. He knows when people pull away." Outside, Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. She got into her car and drove without thinking. Halfway home, her phone rang. Mark. She ignored it. Again. And again. Finally, a text. Mine said, "We need to talk. This running away isn't healthy." Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. At Linda's apartment, she found something waiting, an envelope pushed under the door. No name. Inside was a printed photo. Sarah's heart nearly stopped. It was her, entering the hospital, taken from far away. Below it, a note. "Room 417 is waiting." Sarah dropped the envelope. Linda rushed out. "What is it?" "He knows," Sarah whispered. "He knows where I've been." That night, the power went out. The apartment went dark. Linda lit candles. "Probably a storm," she said, but Sarah didn't believe that. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A video. Her finger hovered over the screen. Then she pressed play. The video was grainy, hospital room, dim light. A woman sat on a bed, crying softly. Mark's voice came from behind the camera. Calm, gentle. "You're safe now," he said. The woman looked up. Her face was pale, terrified. Sarah's stomach dropped. It was Claire. The video ended. Another message appeared. "I told you not to listen to nurses," Sarah screamed. Linda grabbed her phone. "We're calling the police," Linda said. Sarah nodded, but deep down she knew something worse. Mark wasn't running. He was watching, and room 417 wasn't finished yet. The police station smelled like old coffee and cold air. Sarah sat stiffly in a hard chair, her arms wrapped around herself. Linda sat beside her, one hand firmly on Sarah's knee. Across the table, a detective flipped through printed screenshots from the video. Detective Harris didn't rush. That scared Sarah more than shouting would have. "You said your husband sent this?" Harris asked. "Yes," Sarah said quietly, "from an unknown number." Harris nodded. "We'll trace it." Sarah leaned forward. "That woman in the video, her name is Claire. She disappeared after being in room 417. Harris paused. "You're sure?" "Yes," Sarah said. "A nurse confirmed it." Harris leaned back. "Without a body or a crime scene, this is difficult." Sarah's chest tightened. "So you won't help?" "We will, but carefully. Your husband hasn't technically committed a crime yet." The word yet echoed in Sarah's mind. Harris slid a small device across the table. "Panic button. If he contacts you or shows up, press it." Sarah nodded, though fear crawled through her veins. They left the station just after sunset. The sky was heavy and gray, like it was holding its breath. Back at Linda's apartment, Sarah packed a small bag. She kept checking the windows, the door, the hallway. Her phone stayed silent. That scared her even more. At 11:47 p.m., the lights flickered. Linda looked up. "That storm must be getting worse." Sarah didn't answer. Her phone buzzed again. One message. Mine said, "I hate when you ignore me." Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. Another message followed. Mine said, "You always liked surprises." Before Sarah could reply, the power went out completely. Darkness swallowed the apartment. Linda grabbed a flashlight. "Stay calm." A sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Linda whispered, "Did you lock the door?" Sarah nodded. The doorknob rattled. Then stopped. Silence. Minutes passed. Then the sound of an elevator ding. Footsteps faded. Neither woman spoke for a long time. At dawn, Sarah knew one thing. She couldn't hide anymore. She needed proof. That morning, Sarah drove back to the hospital. She wore a mask, a hoodie, sunglasses. She walked fast, head down. The hospital felt colder than before. Evelyn wasn't at the nurse's desk. Instead, a young intern looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to visit a patient," Sarah said, forcing her voice steady. "What room?" Sarah swallowed. 417. The intern checked the computer. "Room 417 is empty," he said. Sarah's heart sank. "But," he added, "there's a storage level below. Old records. Basement level B." Sarah felt a chill. "Can anyone go there?" The intern shrugged. "Technically, no, but security is short today." Sarah waited until he turned away. Then she slipped through the stairwell door. Down one level, then another. The basement smelled damp and forgotten. Flickering lights buzzed overhead. Rows of old filing cabinets lined the walls. Sarah's heart pounded. She opened one drawer. Patient records. Names. Dates. Room numbers. Her fingers moved fast. She froze. Multiple names were crossed out. Some had red marks. One name stood out. Claire Benson. Sarah pulled the file. Inside were notes, visitor logs. One name appeared again and again. Mark Reynolds.
Her stomach twisted. Then she heard a sound. Footsteps. Heavy. Male. Sarah shoved the file into her bag. She ducked behind a cabinet. A shadow crossed the hallway. A familiar voice spoke. Sarah. Her blood turned cold. Mark stepped into the light. He looked calm, smiling. You always were curious, he said softly. Sarah backed away. Stay back. Mark tilted his head. You shouldn't be down here. It's dangerous. Like you? Sarah snapped. Mark sighed. You ruined everything. He stepped closer. Sarah reached into her pocket and pressed the panic button. Mark noticed. His smile faded. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mark's eyes darkened. You think this saves you? He hissed. He lunged. Sarah ran. She sprinted down the hall, heart pounding. Behind her, Mark chased. A door slammed open ahead. Security guards. Police. Mark stopped, hands raised. His calm face shattered into rage. This isn't over, he said, staring straight at Sarah. They cuffed him. As they led him away, Mark leaned close. You still don't know everything, he whispered. Sarah collapsed to the floor. Hours later, Detective Harris sat beside her. You did the right thing, he said. Those files change everything. Sarah nodded weakly. But, Harris added, some files are missing. Sarah looked up. Missing? Yes, Harris said, including Claire's final discharge. Sarah felt sick. What does that mean? Harris met her eyes. It means Mark wasn't working alone. Sarah stared at the basement door and realized the truth was deeper, darker, and far from over. Sarah couldn't sleep. Her small apartment felt smaller than ever, shadows stretching across the walls like fingers. Every sound, the creak of the radiator, a car outside, a distant siren, made her flinch. Even with Mark in custody, she knew the danger wasn't over. Her last words replayed in her mind. You still don't know everything. By mid-morning, Detective Harris called. Sarah, we need you back at the station. There's something you should see. Her stomach twisted. She didn't want another surprise today, not ever again, but she forced herself to go. At the station, Harris led her to a private room. A laptop sat on the table, already playing footage. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized the hospital basement, the filing cabinets, the same dim lights. Then she saw another figure moving in the shadows, a man she didn't recognize. Who is that? Sarah whispered. That's the problem, Harris said. We don't know, but he was in the basement that night. He didn't interact with Mark on camera, but he's there, observing everything. Sarah leaned closer. The man moved like a ghost, almost invisible, but one thing was clear. He had purpose. Every action, every step, calculated. Harris continued. We checked the security cameras outside the hospital. This man enters and exits through the delivery entrance. He's careful, wears gloves, a hoodie, avoids the cameras. Sarah's chest tightened. So Mark wasn't alone. He had someone else? Harris nodded grimly. And that's not all. There's evidence he had been following you even before the panic button alert. Sarah's phone buzzed in her purse. Her hands shook as she checked it. Unknown number. She hesitated, then opened the message. You're looking in the wrong direction. Think deeper. He's not the only one who knows. Her blood ran cold. Who sent this? Harris asked. I don't know, Sarah admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Harris leaned forward. Sarah, there's something else we found in the basement. He opened a folder filled with photographs. Sarah's eyes widened. Cameras! Small hidden cameras everywhere, inside vents, behind filing cabinets, even inside the smoke detectors. They recorded everything, Harris said quietly. Every visitor, every move. And we believe someone's been watching more than just the hospital records. Sarah felt like the walls of the room were closing in. Every look at the photos made her chest ache. Suddenly, Sarah remembered something. The hospital intern. He had been too casual when she asked about the basement. Too easy.
"Detective," she said, her voice firm. "What about the intern, the one at the desk? Could he be—" "Exactly what we're thinking," Harris said. "We traced the delivery logs. That intern's name is Tyler Morgan. He has no criminal record, no history. But his access logs match the camera placements. He's our second suspect." Sarah felt like she had been punched in the stomach. The realization cut deeper than fear. She had trusted him, and he had been there, watching her, maybe even before she knew Mark existed. Hours later, Sarah agreed to meet Harris and Lena at a safe house. Lena had been a shadow in Sarah's story for weeks, always a quiet but steady presence. Now she seemed tense, her eyes scanning every corner. "They were careful," Lena said softly. "He watches, he plans. He doesn't just want control, he wants power, over fear, over trust." Sarah's hands trembled. "But why me? Why now?" "Because you fought back," Lena said firmly. "Most people, Mark picked them because they'd break quietly. You didn't, and that made you dangerous to him." A sudden knock on the door made all three jump. Harris motioned to his gun. Sarah froze. "It's me," a voice said. Tyler Morgan stepped in, holding his hands up. He looked calm, almost too calm. Sarah's heart raced. "You," she whispered, "you've been—" "I know, and you don't understand everything yet." He stepped closer, showing something in his hand, a small flash drive. "I recorded everything Mark did. I kept it in case he ever went too far. You need to see this. The truth isn't just in the hospital." Harris exchanged a glance with Lena. "Why should we trust you?" Tyler's eyes softened. "Because I can't forgive what he did, but I can help stop it." Reluctantly, Sarah took the drive. Her hands shook as she plugged it into Lena's laptop. Files popped up, videos, documents, even photos she hadn't seen before. One video caught her attention. It showed a room she didn't recognize, dimly lit with several women inside. They were scared, looking at a man whose back faced the camera. Then he turned. Her blood froze. It wasn't Mark. Tyler whispered, "That's the bigger problem. Mark alone was dangerous, but he had someone helping him, someone who's still out there." Sarah stared at the screen. Panic clawed at her chest. She had thought Mark was the end of her nightmare, but the video proved she had been wrong. The drive held more files, plans, notes, calendars marked with her name, dates, times, locations she frequented, every step she had taken. Sarah's hands trembled as she closed the laptop. He's been watching me for months," she whispered. "And he's not done," Lena added quietly. "Not until he knows you're trapped or gone." Sarah looked at Harris. "Then we need to find him before it's too late." Harris nodded. "We will, but he's smart, too smart. We have to be careful. One wrong move and he disappears again." The three of them sat in tense silence. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on them, always watching. And she knew one terrible truth. Mark had been the start, but the real danger, the one who had been orchestrating it all, was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And this time, Sarah wasn't just running, she was being hunted. The night was cold, almost cruel. Sarah sat in her car outside an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The drive had been long, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles ached. Lena sat beside her, Tyler in the back, the small flash drive resting on the dashboard like a ticking warning. "This is it," Tyler said quietly. "This is where the rest of the truth is." Sarah's stomach twisted. She had been chasing shadows for weeks, following clues Mark had left behind, tracing back every step he or whoever was with him had planned, and now it had led them here, to a place she didn't recognize, a place where danger could be anywhere. Lena leaned closer. "Be careful. He knows you're coming. He's probably already inside, waiting." Sarah's heart raced. Every nerve in her body screamed to turn the car around and run, to leave this nightmare behind forever. But she couldn't.
Not after everything. Not after the women in those videos, terrified and trapped. Not after the life she had almost lost. Tyler slid a small handgun across the seat to her. "You may need it," he said. "I'll cover the rear. Lena, you stay with the car. If things go south, run." Sarah nodded, swallowing hard. She gripped the gun, trying to steady her shaking hands. The warehouse loomed in front of her, dark and silent, but she could feel the tension in the air, like the building itself was holding its breath. "Remember," Tyler whispered, "he's not just violent. He's clever. He anticipates moves, sets traps." Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed open the rusted door. The smell hit her immediately. Damp metal, old oil, something else, metallic. Her eyes adjusted slowly. Crates and pallets were stacked high, casting long shadows. Somewhere in the darkness, she could hear faint footsteps. "Hello?" she called, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. No answer, just the echo of her own words. Then, from the far corner, a slow clap. The sound echoed, sharp and mocking. Sarah froze. A figure stepped forward, emerging from the shadows. Mark, or someone who looked like him, smiled. "You came," he said, calm, too calm. "I was wondering if you would." Sarah's heart pounded, but she held her ground. "You won't get away with this," she said firmly. "Oh, I already have," he said, stepping closer. His eyes flicked toward the crates, then back at her. "But you're stronger than I expected. I underestimated you." Tyler moved, but Sarah raised her hand, signaling him to hold. This was her fight, and she knew it. "What do you want?" she asked, voice low but steady. Mark tilted his head. "To see if you could survive, to see if the little trust I planted would bloom or die." Sarah's stomach churned. He had been testing her, manipulating her, and the thought made her blood boil. "You won't control me," she spat. He smiled again, but this time it was different, sharper, colder. Control? No, that ended long ago. Now it's about completion. Suddenly, the lights flickered on. Crates moved, and from the shadows emerged two more figures, masked, carrying equipment, cameras, flashlights, more surveillance. Sarah's heart leapt. This wasn't just Mark. It was the network, the other person behind everything, the one who had been tracking her, preparing her, waiting for the right moment. Tyler whispered, "We have to move, now." But Sarah didn't. Something inside her snapped. She realized, finally, that their confidence came from underestimating her. If she showed fear, they would control her. If she stood strong, she could turn the tables. "Step back," she said firmly, commanding. "Leave the cameras. Leave everything." Mark laughed, a low, dangerous sound. "You think it's that easy? Try me." And she did. Quick as a flash, she grabbed the nearest crate and swung it, knocking one of the masked figures to the floor. Tyler fired a warning shot, making the other step back. In the chaos, Sarah grabbed the flash drive from her pocket, the key evidence that would bring this entire operation down. Mark's eyes widened for the first time. "How?" he stammered. "I'm not your project," Sarah said, advancing slowly. "I'm not your experiment. I'm not your victim." The remaining figure hesitated, then bolted toward the exit. Mark tried to follow, but Tyler blocked him, forcing him down. Sarah moved forward, adrenaline pumping through her veins. Every step, every breath was deliberate. "Sarah, take the drive," Tyler said urgently. "We can end this now." She held it tight, then looked at Mark. "This ends tonight." The police sirens pierced the distance outside. Lena had called for backup the moment the warehouse was located. Mark's network hadn't expected intervention so fast. He tried to run, but Tyler tackled him to the ground. Sarah stood over him, her chest heaving. The fire in her eyes made him flinch. He realized, finally, that his control, his manipulation, was over. "Your games are done," she said quietly. "You don't get to destroy lives anymore." The officers arrived moments later, arresting Mark and the remaining accomplice. Sarah handed over the flash drive, the evidence that would finally close the case. Lena hugged her tightly outside the warehouse. "You did it. You stopped him." Sarah nodded, but deep inside she knew the scars would remain. The fear, the manipulation, the nights of uncertainty, they were gone, but the memories would linger. Weeks later, Sarah moved into a new apartment. She placed the flash drive in a safe, knowing it was only a symbol now. Outside, the sun shone bright for the first time in months. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lena. "Coffee soon. We deserve it." Sarah smiled softly. For the first time, she felt safe. Truly safe. The shadows had lifted. But just as she put her phone down, a thought struck her. Mark had said there was someone else. Did the police find everyone? Was it really over? A chill ran down her spine. She shook her head. No, not today. Today she would breathe. Today she would be free. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the city streets, a shadow moved silently, watching, waiting. But Sarah, she was ready. This time, she wouldn't run. This time, she would fight. The end, or at least, that's what she hoped.